An aging Aikido master, all calm smiles and flowing robes, faces off against a hulking MMA champion in his prime. The crowd jeers, expecting a quick knockout. But as the bell rings, something incredible happens. The old man moves like water, and suddenly the MMA fighter is airborne. Is this the stuff of martial arts legend, or could it really happen? Let's find out. In this video, we're exploring a topic that's been hotly debated in martial arts circles for years. Can the ancient art of Aikido truly stand up against modern mixed martial arts? Let's get started. Aikido, developed in the early 20th century by Morihei Ueshiba, isn't just a martial art. It's a philosophy, a way of life. At its core, Aikido is about harmony. The name itself translates to the way of harmonious spirit. Unlike many other martial arts that focus on meeting force with force, Aikido teaches practitioners to blend with their attacker's energy, redirecting it to neutralize the threat. But don't mistake this emphasis on harmony for weakness. Aikido is packed with powerful techniques that can incapacitate an opponent with surprising efficiency. However, when we talk about MMA, we usually think of explosive strikes, double-leg takedowns, and ground and pound. Aikido, with its flowing movements and emphasis on harmony, seems almost out of place in this brutal sport. But here's where it gets interesting. Some MMA fighters have found ways to incorporate Aikido principles and techniques into their arsenal, often with surprising results. Take Anderson Silva, for example. The legendary UFC middleweight champion was known to train in Aikido, and if you watch his fights closely, you can see glimpses of Aikido's influence in his evasive movements and the way he redirects his opponent's energy. But it's not just about the big names. There have been instances where Aikido techniques have been successfully applied in MMA fights, even when the fighters are wearing gloves. One particularly eye-opening example occurred in a lesser-known MMA promotion. An Aikido practitioner managed to execute a perfect wrist lock on his opponent despite both fighters wearing gloves. The MMA fighter, caught off guard by this unexpected technique, found himself repeatedly thrown to the ground, unable to mount an effective offense against the Aikido Master's fluid movements. This brings us to an important point. Aikido's effectiveness in MMA isn't about replicating dojo techniques exactly. It's about applying Aikido principles, blending, redirecting, and unbalancing within the context of an MMA fight. And when done right, it can be devastatingly effective. Now let's dive into some fascinating examples that showcase the potential of Aikido in MMA contexts. These real-life examples might just change your perspective on what's possible when traditional martial arts meet modern combat sports. In an unexpected twist, a one-armed Aikido master once faced off against a professional MMA fighter. On paper, this matchup seemed like a mismatch of epic proportions. But as the fight unfolded, spectators were left in awe. The Aikido master, using his single arm with incredible efficiency, managed to control the clinch and even take the MMA fighter to the ground. His mastery of balance and leverage allowed him to compensate for his physical disadvantage, proving that Aikido's principles can be adapted to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you: Aikido's versatility in combat situations. MMA fighters are known for their raw power, explosive movements, and ability to seamlessly transition between striking and grappling. So how does Aikido, with its emphasis on harmony and blending, fit into this high-octane world? The answer lies in Aikido's adaptability. You see, Aikido isn't just about throwing people around like rag dolls. It's about understanding and manipulating body mechanics, balance, and energy. Those principles apply whether you're wearing a hakama or board shorts. Take ground combat, for instance. You might think Aikido practitioners would be fish out of water once the fight hits the mat. However, Aikido's principle of using an opponent's energy against them can be surprisingly effective in ground situations. An Aikido practitioner might not have the same submission arsenal as a BJJ black belt, but their understanding of balance and leverage can make them a slippery opponent to pin down. And let's not forget about Aikido's joint locks. While some joint manipulations are illegal in MMA, the principles behind them can still be applied. An Aikido-trained fighter might use subtle wrist controls to off-balance their opponent during clinch situations or apply pressure to the elbow to create openings for strikes. However, perhaps the most valuable asset Aikido brings to the MMA table is its emphasis on spatial awareness and reading your opponent's intentions. In the chaotic environment of a cage fight, the ability to sense and react to your opponent's movements before they happen can be a game changer. Imagine an MMA fighter, all muscles and mean mugs, charging in for a takedown. Our Aikido practitioner, cool as a cucumber, slightly shifts his weight, extends his arm, and bam! The MMA fighter finds himself flying through the air, wondering if he's suddenly developed the ability to teleport. But before you rush off to your local Aikido dojo expecting to become the next UFC champion, let's keep it real for a moment. Aikido, like any martial art, has its limitations. Aikido has faced its fair share of skepticism in the world of combat sports. Some have called it too soft. Others have questioned its effectiveness against a resisting opponent. And let's be honest, they're not entirely wrong. Traditional Aikido, with its flowing techniques and cooperative training methods, can sometimes seem out of touch with the gritty reality of a no-holds-barred fight. But here's the thing, Aikido is adapting to the modern world. And some practitioners are leading the charge in bridging the gap between traditional Aikido and practical combat effectiveness. Take Jason DeLucia, for example. This guy is like the mad scientist of martial arts. He took Aikido, threw it in a blender with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kung Fu, and a dash of Taekwondo, and came out with something he calls Combat Aikido. DeLucia's hybrid style showcases how Aikido principles can be effectively combined with other martial arts to create a well-rounded fighting system. His record in the UFC stands at 2-1, proving that with the right adaptations, Aikido concepts can indeed hang with the big boys of MMA. But DeLucia isn't the only one stirring the pot. Enter Dan the Wolfman Theodore. This guy combined Aikido with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling to create a grappling style that's as unpredictable as a cat on catnip. He even pulled off an Aikido wrist roll in a professional catch wrestling competition. That's like using a spoon in a knife fight and somehow making it work. These innovators are showing that Aikido doesn't have to be an either-or proposition. It's not about choosing between traditional Aikido and modern MMA techniques. Instead, it's about taking the best of both worlds and creating something new and effective. We can't talk about Aikido without mentioning the man, the myth, the legend, Steven Seagal. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Seagal has played a significant role in popularizing Aikido worldwide. From these humble beginnings, Seagal's martial arts journey took off like a rocket. In 1964, he began studying Aikido under Kiyoshi Ishisaka. It was in Japan that Seagal's Aikido skills really started to shine. He earned a 7th degree black belt and the title of Shihan, a term used in Japanese martial arts to denote a master teacher. In a move that probably made some traditionalists choke on their green tea, Seagal became the first foreigner to successfully operate an Aikido dojo in Japan. That's right, this ponytail sporting American was teaching Aikido to the Japanese. Seagal's movies also introduced Aikido to a global audience. People who had never heard of Aikido before were suddenly trying to mimic Seagal's wrist locks and throws. Emergency rooms worldwide probably saw an uptick in sprains and strains as a result. But jokes aside, Seagal's contribution to Aikido goes beyond just popularizing it. In his teaching, Seagal often focuses on the more direct and forceful aspects of Aikido, which some argue brings it closer to its roots in traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu. One of Seagal's signature moves, which has gained some traction in MMA circles, is his version of the front kick. MMA fighter Lyoto Machida famously credited Seagal for helping him perfect this technique, which he used to knock out the former UFC champion Randy Couture at UFC 129. Who would have thought that a move from the guy in Under Siege would end up being a game-changer in the UFC? So can Aikido work in MMA? The answer is yes and no. Pure traditional Aikido might struggle in the modern MMA arena. However, the principles of Aikido, when adapted and integrated with other martial arts, can absolutely contribute to an effective MMA skill set. What do you think? Could Aikido be the next big thing in MMA? Or is it better left to the world of action movies? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.